As a kid, I did a lot of youth theater shows in my hometown of Seattle, and until I was about 11 or 12, I refused to play any female roles. I would only play male characters because they seemed like so much more fun, and of course they were usually the bigger, more interesting roles. They got to do sword fights, climb on stuff, your general hijinks. Now, my hardline refusal of never playing female characters worked out really well for plays, but for musicals, I wasn't a strong enough singer to play the male lead roles, so I was often relegated to the smaller, more gender-neutral roles, which, in the case of one production of The Wizard of Oz, was the tornado. Yes, I played a human version of the tornado that brings Dorothy and her dog Toto to Oz. When I got the part, it hadn't really dawned on me yet that perhaps it's a little bit humiliating to be the tornado, which is essentially a made-up role that probably could have been suggested with some wind noises, maybe an actual fan, and some lights. But at the time, I didn't really have any strong feelings about playing a humanoid storm until I tried on the costume. Now, I'm not sure if this costume designer had secretly wished for quite some time to have the opportunity to create a natural disaster costume. And finally, this opportunity had arrived. Because my costume was, in a word, elaborate. Firstly, it took about maybe 2 people to help me get into it. I looked like some sort of dirt-colored seaweed monster from the depths of the ocean. There were all of these streamers, these links of fabric, stuck all over me. And the costume had these very long, flowy sleeves. And then on top of that, I had to wear multiple tutus, to get the proper volume of the storm. And like I said, streamers were everywhere, attached to every inch of my skirts, my sleeves. I even had this crown of fabric flowing down from the top of my head. When I moved, I looked like the shaggiest dog with braids. Now, as the tornado, if you've seen the movie or show or read the book, I have to take Dorothy and her dog to Oz. And I'm doing that as Dorothy sees the Witch of the West bicycling outside her window. So during the show, how we mimicked that was I danced and moved in a circle around the actress playing Dorothy as the crew backstage started rolling up this backdrop of Kansas so that the set of Oz would be revealed. Now, opening night comes and goes brilliant. I am really feeling it. My streamers and costume are catching the light. In fact, I get so into it that I add a few whoosh, whoosh, tornado sounds. Then it's the night of the second show. And my turn to come on stage and do my dance happens. And again, I'm feeling very confident because of how well opening night went. So I again start to dance. And I start to dance more and more enthusiastically. And my circles around Dorothy are getting bigger and bigger because I really want to show just how giant this tornado is. And I'm feeling so free and wild and really connecting with the tornado as an actor. In fact, it's so good that I'm not even really surprised when I hear someone from the audience gasp, thinking, yeah, I actually managed to impersonate a tornado so well that it's frightening to people. And I just start to swell with this immense pride and satisfaction that I just completely am nailing this. And I begin my final big spin around Dorothy, which is the spin that would transport her and her dog to Oz. Except I find I can't because I'm stuck. I try again to move in the other direction. Nope, can't do it. It turns out several of the streamers from my costume, those long links of fabric pieces, are stuck in the backdrop that's being rolled up, and my skirt, well, plural, skirts, is starting to be lifted higher and higher because the stagehands backstage that are raising this backdrop of Kansas up can't really see me or what's going on stage because it was pretty dark and kind of chaotic with the lights. It is supposed to be this crazy storm. So as both of my skirts are starting to be lifted up more and more over my head, I'm just looking straight out at the audience as this is happening with probably this bizarre mixture of fear, shock, and just this slow build of terror. And I imagine that they were probably looking back at me with a similar mixture of emotions, plus hopefully maybe some pity and probably some anger, as this children's show was about to become very PG-13 quickly due to some unintentional stripping. I think during that time, my soul briefly left my body and observed the situation and thought, yeah, this sucks. This is not going well. We should immediately get out of this situation. I don't care what method we use, we need to get out. And when my soul came back to my body, and I had that realization for myself, I just suddenly went into survivor mode, pumping myself up, thinking, yeah, I have to get out of here. I don't care what it takes. I don't care what I look like. I have to do this now. So I reach up and grab those pieces of skirt that are being rolled up and almost over my head. And it's really hard to tear. So I go full on Hulk mode and I just yell out as I'm tearing it in two. And then I have this moment after I've torn it where I just stare down the audience without the bottom half of my costume on. So I'm just in tights, basically, looking like some kind of psychopath. And then finally the people in the lighting booth, the crew up in the lighting booth, realize what was happening on stage and bring the lights down really quickly so the audience can't see this downward spiral I'm on anymore. But I'm still standing on stage just in darkness, just staring out. And then someone whispers, "Hey, hey." And just suddenly I come to myself and let off this sort of a muffled scream and just run off stage, just completely book it. Part of my ripped skirt with streamers remains stuck, rolled up in the backdrop of Kansas, and still visible for the rest of the show, in case I or anyone in the audience forgot what had transpired that night. Of course, starting the next show, my dance and costume were both completely changed, so that would never happen again. And that's the story of how The Wizard of Oz for one night became the show not about Dorothy and her journey, but about a misunderstood and slightly psychotic tornado with a clothing problem.